Alrighty guys, today we are doing the camera test between the iPhone 13 Pro Max on my left and the iPhone 14 Pro Max on my right. I am recording at 4K 30 frames per second on the front facing cameras. I want to hear the audio. I want to see if the 14 Pro Max looks any better than the 13 Pro Max. And it should, because the new autofocus in the front cameras should play a little bit of an improvement. I'm going to test out a few different features. Obviously the back side of cameras, the action mode. I want to see how good the new stabilization is in action mode and take a few photos. And I want to also try out the new cinematic mode that's been updated on the 14 Pro Max. So let's switch over to cinematic mode now. Alrighty guys, they are in cinematic mode, both phones right now. Let's see the difference. The weather is starting to change now. So as you guys can see in the background there, see how the HDR is handled in cinematic mode. Even with trees behind me, let's see how if I get closer to the trees, does it lose focus at all? I want to see if I can throw off the cinematic mode at all, because I know in the iPhone 13 Pro Max it wasn't as good, and apparently on the 14 Pro Max it's more refined. So I want to test that out and see how they are both handling the situations right now. Just from initially looking at the screens right now, the 14 Pro Max look a bit sharper. It could just be the new brighter screen in the direct sunlight. Alrighty guys, we're going to switch to the back facing cameras and test those out in 3, 2, 1. Alrighty guys, we have switched to the backside cameras. These are the main cameras on both phones. They are recording at 4K 30 frames a second, exactly the same on both. Both are obviously the 1X right now. Now I'm going to switch to 2X. Obviously on the 14 Pro Max. On the 13 Pro Max there's no 2X, so let's switch to 3X now, and 3X on the 14, so you guys can see the difference there. Alright, now let's switch to the ultra wide cameras. The ultra wide camera has actually been updated as well on the 14 Pro Max, so it should be a little bit of a difference there in terms of quality. So if we go up to anything, let's see if we can see any quality differences. Alright, back to 1X now. Alright, so we're back on 1X now. Looking pretty good, pretty sharp, and I really want to test out action mode in a second, so we'll get to that in a moment. But now I want to just walk through here and see how it focuses when I'm going near something like this tree over here. The 13 Pro Max having a bit of trouble there focusing. There we go. The 13 Pro Max having a bit of trouble focusing, so let's try that again. Yeah, it's better. All right, so I think we're all good now. Cool. See what's around here. It's a bit of a little pond from all the rain, as you can see there. All different shadows and highlights and HDR. Let's see how that's working with both phones right now. Pretty much the same. You can definitely tell the screen brightness difference from my end of the 14 Pro Max. It's a lot brighter than the 13 Pro Max outdoors. Alright guys, we're going to switch to action mode and give that a shot. Alright guys, just so you know that obviously the 13 Pro Max doesn't have action mode, so that's going to be recording normally, while on the 14 Pro Max it's going to be recording in action mode to see the difference in stabilization. Alrighty guys, here's action mode now. Let's run through here. A few different terrains. Let's see how both phones do here. There's a few rabbits up here. Wow. Alright guys, just looking at the footage back, the action mode on the 14 Pro Max is crazy how stabilized it actually is and how smooth it is. Now it just crops down the video a little bit, And the resolution does drop from 4K to 2.8K. So that's the difference in resolution there. But still, recording at 2.8K and getting that stabilization from this phone is pretty cool. And it does it really, really well. Alrighty guys, we're gonna test out these slow-mo cameras right now. I'm gonna throw something into that puddle, that pond over there, and see what the slow-mo looks like, both at 1080p at 240 frames a second. Guys, I just want to try action mode while I'm walking and see if it stabilizes the cameras more than without it, if that makes sense. On the 13 Pro Max, no action mode in the front facing camera either. 14 Pro Max has it, so I want to see if it stabilizes my walking and if it's actually a lot smoother. Guys, this is the low light test. iPhone 13 Pro Max and iPhone 14 Pro Max. For some reason, the iPhone 14 Pro Max is a bit more of a warmer hue to it. I'm not sure why, but it is a lot more warmer, especially coming onto this light over here. As you guys can see, everything looks a lot warmer. The clouds, my skin tones, compared to the 13 Pro Max, which isn't nowhere near as warmer. It's a lot cooler, as you guys can see right there. Alrighty guys, that is it for the video part of this camera test between the 14 Pro Max and the 13 Pro Max. We're now going to head on to the camera comparison of photos and see what they both look like. See if the 48 megapixel camera on the new 14 Pro Max looks any better and if it actually makes a difference. So let's head straight into that. 3, 2,